Hello, my name's Galena. I'm the fiance of Joshua Lee McCollister, who was murdered on July 8th by Deunn Willis and robbed by Danielle Durand. You know, I do read all the comments that people put on my site, and if there's something that's particularly worth a reaction, I might do a video about it. So somebody yesterday commented on who the instigator and enabler obviously are. So I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna say their names at this time. There's gonna obviously be some people who know who they are, but I play the long game, and I have a long game in mind for this. You know, there's been a lot of comments over the course of the last 6 months about the fact that I married Aaron Channel, and that Aaron Channel did a lot of years in prison for, I think it was technically manslaughter, not murder, regarding the death of a pedophile. People compared Aaron Channel to John Treffel an awful lot, and I think that's really unfair, but I understand why people would make that comparison, because they haven't read Aaron Channel's the police report about what he was in there for, but I have a copy of it, unredacted, that I got from Aaron's lawyer. So I know that that the person that he killed was a serious, major pedophile. I mean, there's, I think, about 2 pages in that police report just listing all the nasty kiddie porn that the victim was into, that he was specifically into the rape of prepubescent little girls and little boys. So I think comparing John Treffel, who killed young girls, to Donald Perez, who was a pedophile, I think it's kind of ridiculous. There is one aspect about me, though, that I've been just waiting for. So since this story blew, that somebody was gonna bring this up, and no one has. But this comment that got made on my site yesterday, I think that I'm just gonna jump ahead of this train, and that is that the Aaron is a Holloway. Now, in Mendocino County, that used to mean something. Like, you go back 30 years, anybody that lived in Mendocino County, the name Holloway would have meant something. They were, Holloways were probably the biggest drug dealing family that Mendocino County ever had. I mean, you know, it's kind of a running joke in the family that, you know, my husband's grandma was basically like the Mendocino County version of Walter White. You know, I don't think that she ever got arrested, but I mean, yeah, this lady was a heavy player. I mean, you could have said the name Holloway to the criminal underground, and I think everybody in California that was into dealing heroin would have known who the Holloways were. And I'm just kind of shocked that this man should go all this time without anybody saying, yeah, but she married into the Holloway family. You know, Aaron's last name is Channel, not Holloway, but it's his mother that's a Holloway. And so the person was speculating that the instigator and the enabler, you know, that they're in that family. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything about who they are, but I am going to talk a little bit about the Holloways. And I think that because I've been in the family for over 20 years, I'm in a position where I can do that. So my dad was from Cicero, Illinois. Cicero was mafia-run territory. It was Capone specifically run. And so my father had a real fear and respect for the mafia. Now, when I was 15, he did not want me to date Aaron Channel at all. Like, he was horrified when he found out that I was dating Aaron Channel, specifically because he knew that Aaron Channel's mother is a Holloway. And he did not want me to have anything to do with the Holloway family at all. He was so scared of them. Oh my God, John Truffle was scared of the Holloways. It's kind of funny. You wouldn't think that he could be, because he did so much evil, but, you know, he was a serial killer. He wasn't stupid. And Aaron had 3 Holloway uncles with a major reputation for being heroin dealers and being violent. I mean, honestly, the only reason I feel comfortable talking about this at all is because they're all dead. So, yeah, Dad was terrified of him. And he did not want his only daughter, his only child, to be mixed up with what he termed the mafia. And it's not just because he was very frightened of the Holloways, like in case he ever wanted to hurt Aaron, and he did want to hurt Aaron, but he was afraid of Aaron's uncles, basically. But that wasn't the only thing. You know, this is not something I'm cooking up as a story now. I mean, people that know my dad people that know me, that know they've heard this consistently for decades, that Dad was afraid that in the event that I married Aaron, and I did when I was barely more than a teenager, I was 20 years old, he was afraid that if ever I got it in my head that I wanted to get a divorce, I wasn't going to be allowed to. That perhaps because I married into this family, I would maybe find out something and I wouldn't be allowed to leave. That, you know, it wasn't necessarily going to be about me personally, but because they were such heavy-duty drug dealers that I would just not be allowed to go. Especially if I had something that they wanted, I would not be allowed to leave. And that's why this person online was speculating that the instigator and the enabler are members of my husband's family. And that the people that were making my life a living hell and Joshua Lee McCollister's life a living hell, that they were Holloways. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I am really surprised that the fact that I'm the daughter-in-law of a Holloway and I was the wife of a Holloway has not come up before. And perhaps the reason it hasn't come up is because the Holloways don't have the juice that they used to. You know, most of the family are good people at this point. But, yeah, that hasn't come up before now. And, you know, just want to get ahead of it before it does. You know, it's funny. I always would think of, when I'd watch that movie Stand By Me, I would think of how my husband's family reminded me of the Chambers family in that, you know, that I've seen people be quite ruthless and quite cruel to people in my husband's family because they're Holloways. And these are people that, some of them are good and didn't do anything wrong. They didn't have anything to do with dealing heroin And it's sad to see people judged badly when they didn't do anything wrong. But, you know, back in the day, the Holloways did hurt a lot of people in Mendocino County, but nowadays, you know, most of the people that did that stuff, they're passed on, they're dead. There's very few Holloways, I think, have anything to do with drug dealing at all anymore. But I understand why that person would speculate that it was this family coming at us, because, you know, to be fair, when you are a drug dealing family, there's things that you have, resources you have, scary, dangerous, violent resources that you have that other people just don't have access to. And that's one of the reasons my father was so afraid of the Holloways. He knew that if ever I did want to get a divorce, it was not going to be easy, because they had resources. They knew people. He was afraid that that they had resources that I just would not be able to fight. So to that person that speculated, I understand why you feel that way. I understand why you think that way. And I'm not gonna, in the future, just so you know, I'm not gonna confirm or deny anything. It's just, I understand why you feel that way. And what I would say to you is just, again, remember, most Holloways are good people. That the heroin dealing past, you know, it's a long time ago. You know, I became very close to my husband's aunt. She was a really kind person. I loved her very much. And, you know, it's crazy the stories that she wrote to me about, that her family was involved in. But one thing about those stories, I just want to close with, those were a long time ago. They were a long time ago. And, yeah, she gave up a lot of information. She did. And she did it in writing, too. But, all that information, it's old. It's really old. It's dirt, but it's really, really old dirt. Yeah, I'm going to sign off for right now.